So for oxalic acid, because we are talking about acids, the word acid tell us that here you have hydrogen, okay? That is mandatory, okay? Hydrogen plus ions, H plus ions. And oxalic, with oxalic, we work differently, okay? We need to take a look to the ending part, okay? You notice that it ends in "-ic". So according to the rules that I gave you the other day, if you're gonna use the suffix "-ic", is for the polyatomic ions that end in 8 or I.
Right.
8.
8.
A or B?
A.
A.
A, okay?
A.
Remember, if it ends in ATE, you're gonna be using "-ic". So the name of this oxalic, the polyatomic ion, is going to be
Oxalate.
oxal, and then the suffix "-ate", oxalate. So then you're going to take the tables of polyatomic ions and you're gonna look for oxalate. I don't have it here. Oxalate is here, as you can see. Oxalate, C2O4 2-. So you write the composition of it, which is C2O4, and the charge is 2-. And because of the word acid, you have the ion H plus at the beginning. So you combine the two of them. Remember, when we combine ions, we need to crisscross the charges that are different than one. So in other words, this charge of 2 is going to come to hydrogen. So the formula is going to be in the end H, the 2 that is coming from the oxalate, and then the oxalate ion, which is C2O4. And this is how you get the formula. Okay, that's how you get the formula.
We cross the charges when it's
Yes,
binary
you
and
crisscross the
polyatomic too.
charges like you did with binary ionic or with polyatomic ionic. That's how you do it. Do you want another example like this? Forming compounds for acids? If not, you ask me another question.
About the quiz is gonna be like the one that we make to practice, right? With choices.
It's good. Why you laugh? Why you look at me like that? Well, you're not looking at me, but your expression tells me that it's a lot easier when I give you the options, right?
Yeah, but if you know how's the topic, you are gonna get it good. So it's whatever the same, and we can't write it because there's not the options to write it up or down the number.
Okay, I'm gonna give you one example of more or less what would it be. Remember that I told you for week 8 is all, okay? All naming, mixed. That's why I didn't want to include polyatomic ionic in this quiz. Or I can do another one in the week 9 to separate. It's because of the face I see. It's okay. I see that you probably don't like the idea of doing a quiz of a mixture of everything, but you still need to get it. In the end, this is going to be like the one of the most important topics, if not the most important one. So you need to understand very well. I know that this is very easy, the cheating part, because you just Google it and you get it. I know it. You don't think I don't know it? That's why in quizzes, I'm gonna give you less time. So you answer or you search for it. But you're not gonna have the time to do all of it. But what I really need is that you guys get it. That you get the idea how to do it. Also, I always say that I make this commitment. Okay, I always say it, but in the end, I just don't. At Liberty, they don't like that I teach chemistry in Spanish. I consider that chemistry should be in Spanish. Okay, and so what I do is I tell my students a general idea on how to name in Spanish the compounds. That is different from English. There are different rules in Spanish. Not too different, but it's different in the end. So I always make that commitment, and I always tell my students, by the end of 11th grade, I will give you a review on how to name in Spanish the compounds. I mean, in general, in English, but also in Spanish. Because I know that some people have to do the exam at La UNA. If you want to study medicine, for example, or any career related to health, they're gonna be asking you about chemistry. And I consider that if you know how to name it in Spanish, it's gonna be easier. Now, I'm gonna give you one more example, or maybe how can I ask you the questions in the. Okay, so I can tell you. And I can give you the options. Well, you don't see it. Wait. I can give you like the options. What would be the name? I mean, what would be the formula for that name? A, B, C, or D?
A, B, D.
The reason is
It's because
Hydro.
hydro and
Hydrogen.
the S of sulfur and the 2 is of sulfur and it goes to the H.
The 2 is coming from sulfur and it goes to the H. But you were saying something about hydro. What does the hydro tells you?
H plus.
That it ends in D. Sulfur is sulfide, and after we pass that, just the sulf, and we add EC.
That it doesn't have oxygen.
Exactly. It doesn't have oxygen. Hydro tells you two things. It doesn't have oxygen and it ends in IDE. The rest that you said applies for both naming, okay? The compound formation can be applied to both, but more specifically, hydro means that the ion ends in IDE, therefore is binary and no oxygen will be included. That's why here we need to choose B. There are many reasons, okay? So even though they look very similar, there's only one that's gonna be valid. This could be like a typical question for a quiz for acids. Now, I don't know if I told you or I explained to other students individually, but I remember that Adalid, when he was in 10th grade, he asked me. And that's why I like this question so much. Not because Adalid asked me, because Adalid asked the most amazing questions. So I remember that he asked me, Miss, how can we make to name an acid with cyanide? And I gave them, I told them, we have binary acids and we have polyatomic acids. So this one is polyatomic. Okay? But if you notice something, even though it is polyatomic, it doesn't have oxygen. So that's why I like Tyler's explanation, because he says we're going to have a naming system for acids without oxygen and for acids with oxygen. So this is a polyatomic ion, yes, but this is with oxygen. So what is the rule that we need to, without oxygen, sorry, I'm this dumb. What is the rule that we will need to apply here for an acid containing cyanide as a polyatomic ion? What will be the
Hydro.
exact
Hydrocyanic acid.
without oxygen? The rule says that we need to use hydro. Hydroic. If you're gonna be using hydro, means that the polyatomic ion ends in IDE, just like cyanide. Cyanide ends in IDE. So the rule applies the same way. So the name will be hydro cyanide. And then the word of core acid. Hydrocyanic acid. I never wondered what he asked me that day. So I had to think. I had to come home and think, what would be the rule? Honestly. Because I never in my life tried to do this exercise, because it never looked so interesting for me. But it was. And after I realized how amazing this example was, I was so excited. So next day I went to school and was, I have your answer. And I told him. It was nice.
But he got you right.
It was good. He make those kind of questions because I understand he is very smart, but also because he's trying like to look for I don't know if you have tried. I think when you think about my quizzes, the kind of questions you ask me, maybe you think that I am the kind of teacher that is going to ask you very difficult things in the quiz. That I'm going to look for the most difficult example or the most tricky one. So he was always thinking beyond in that case. But honestly, I never thought about it before. And from him, I consider that I had to like change the rule that I gave to my students and not to use. And I forgot this year with you, okay? Not to use the word binary because even though this is not a binary asset, because the asset will be just age, and okay? That's not binary because you have 3 elements. But even though it's not binary, the rule applies because it doesn't have oxygen. So basically, the rule should be acids with oxygen and acids without oxygen. That's more accurate. Okay, so take a look in your textbook. There are many pages where you can work with all these topics. Okay, so I'm gonna need that you work with the chapter 7 in page 211. Okay. Now, what topic do we have in the page 211?
Naming binary ionic compounds.
Binary ionic. Now, this is going to be for you to practice for the quiz that I'm going to apply for all the compounds, okay? For all the topics, all the kind of compounds. Now, what topic do we have in the page 212?
Stokes system of nomenclature.
Stock system. The stock system is the one of the Roman numerals, okay? And the one of the Roman numerals is a transition with multiple valence electron, transition metals, with multiple charges. This is the one that I consider is the most difficult for you. The page 212, but also the page 214. What is the difference between this page and the 214?
Ionic compound.
Ionic compound.
The 214 is
Polyatomics.
polyatomic. But here in this page, you will find also polyatomic with Roman numerals. Okay? So, it's a combination, okay? Polyatomic, ionic, 4 transitional metals. Take a look at all the topics. Now, in the page 215, what do we have?
Prefix system.
The prefix system for that kind of compound.
Binary molecular.
Binary molecular.
Binary molecular or binary covalent, okay? So, you can call it prefix system, like in the textbook, which is just another way to say binary, covalent, or molecular. I think this is the easiest of the topics. In my opinion, this is the easiest of the topics. Well, not my opinion. I mean, my students ask me these kind of exercises all the time. But, I don't like this topic. The one from 215, the prefix system, I don't like it. After I teach this topic, people forget everything that I explained before. So they forget how to recognize binary ionic, they forget how to recognize the transition metals, and they want to call everything with the prefix system. So, for example, this is an example, and trust me, it
Really
happens
confused.
more often than I would like to admit. So, example, my students can make this like this. What kind of compound is that? Ionic or covalent? That's the first question you always have to ask yourself.
It's ionic.
Ionic.
It's
Ionic.
ionic. But many people, after I teach this topic, that's why I don't like it. It's the easiest, and that's why I don't like it, because people forget. They use the prefix system to call diiron trisulfide or something like that. They forget diiron trisulfide. That's weird. But even though I accept weird things, but not incorrect things. So that's why I don't like it. That's my personal choice. Okay, then we have the page 218.
The review.
It's the review. Now, take a look to the part 5 of the review. What topic is that?
Asian of walls.
It's still ionic, but there are some acids included, okay? So that review is going to be very helpful too. So, today, you can also take part of the weekend to work in those pages. Any doubt that you have from there, let me know. If you can do this right, I think you can do any other thing right. Now, acids. Is there another thing that you want to ask me about acids?
What is going to come in the quiz? In the quiz that we are gonna have the next class.
Is that sometimes I feel like if I put all the topics, it's going to be like too much. But some other times I think, I'm not gonna say what
I think it's
think.
not that it's gonna be too much. The thing is that it's gonna be confused or something like
Confusing.
that. Yes.
I know. Because in the end there will be only like 10 questions or 20. 10 or 20. Okay? I think that if it's a mixture, I could ask 20 things, 20 questions. If it's a mix. Remember
What
I
about
told
what
you that I assigned 100 exercises for the second partial. That is my signature move in the second partial. Yes, I do it. I love it. I do it with you. I mean, I do it. It doesn't matter how many times I love it. I just love it. I do your homework. So if I assign you 100 exercises, I assign myself 100 exercises too. But you need to practice. That is a fact. And I know that you're probably gonna be hating me for this. But it's, as I told you, my signature move. I normally assign it in a way that you don't feel it. Like this week we're gonna do 25, the other week we could do another 25, and then in the last week you do 50. Yes, it might be too much. But if you do it for real, it's a practice that you will never forget. If you just Google it, it doesn't matter if I assign 1,000 exercises more. You won't learn a thing if you Google it. And maybe you're surprised, I know, miss, ¿qué dice? We're not like this. But I've been a teacher for so many years, so I kind of get it. And now with virtual classes, it's like the perfect way to do it. And it's very easy how to recognize when you Google it. Like for example, in the quiz, many people wrote it's so easy to recognize when you Google your quiz. That is not sulfate. You know why it's not sulfate?
Because the charge is too
Missing the
negative.
charge.
Because it's missing the charge. This is sulfate. Huge difference. So no, this isn't sulfate. This is sulfur tetroxide. No, pero que facilito con la Miss. I just sent her the screenshot. 100% right, 10% is weak. No, not gonna be like that. If you do it for real, as I told you, it's gonna be a huge practice. The website that I shared with you. If you don't, it doesn't matter how many I assigned. Okay, so as a review, remember the mnemonics that this guy shared with you, right? My right has hydraulics. That's amazing. What was the other one? I ate something icky. Ate
And
ick.
Sprite is delicious.
And Sprite is delicious. ITE-O's. ITE-O's. Okay? So let's take a look to this. How would you call an acid that has this sorry, how would you call these two acids? So how to recognize it? It is an acid. Acids always have hydrogen in this side. Okay? That's a key to recognize acids from the formulas. What is the composition of this acid? The
Hydrogen and chloride.
Chloride.
The first one.
hydrogen, I mean H plus ion, and
Chlorous acid.
Chlorus.
how do you call this anion? ClO2.
Chloride.
Chloric acid. Chloric.
Chloride. Remember, Sprite, ite, chloride. Okay? How do you call this one below?
Miss, the ClO without the 2 is not chloride.
No.
Hypochlorite.
Hypochlorite.
Hypochlorite. See, there's a big difference. Hypochlorite. Remember, ite. So, this is an acid that is composed of H plus ions and the ion chloride. And this is an acid that is composed of H plus ion and the ion hypochlorite. So the formula, you already have it over there, but how can we name it? Remember, Sprite is delicious. Just write a name. Instead of chloride, it's going to be O's. Instead of chloride
Chlorous acid.
is chlorose. Instead of hypochlorite will be hypochlorose. And then you just add the word acid. And that will be just fine.
Miss, you're gonna send today the link, right?
I'm gonna send what, sorry?
The link that you said of physics?
Ah, yes. Okay, take a look to this one. How can we name these acids? First, we need to see how the acid is being composed. Okay? A single P.
Phosphorus.
Phosphorus.
But the ion, it's called phosphide. Remember this. The ion is called phosphide, and the IDE, my right